Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to see you could all join us. My name is Jim Flynn from Great Place to Work. I'm coming to you here from Kilkenny this morning, and it is very Irish. It is very cloudy. Sun is trying to break out, and if you have managed to join us, please drop something in the chat there to let us know how it is where you are. You're very welcome. Really excited about this morning. A huge thank you to both Colin and Patrick for joining us, and looking forward to getting into that discussion on how trusted leaders build high performing cultures. Patrick is, of course, our most trusted leader for 2026, and Colin will be chatting to as well. So, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being with us this morning. So, Akshita, also thank you for your help in terms of setting this up, and to the rest of the Great Place to Work team, and for your help in putting everything here together. We've just a few little different announcements to touch on as people are joining us. And if you could move on to the next slide there, Akshita, we're delighted to announce recently our best workplaces list and our best workplaces for women. And if you click onto those QR codes there, you'll be able to see some great organizations, including Chadwicks, who have done really, really well in terms of their positioning this year. Sheeta has also very kindly dropped it into the chat. And there are some great, I suppose, examples to us all of organizations that we can learn from, and organizations that we can see are positioning culture for high performance and sustainability. So delighted to be able to celebrate those, to be able to recognize those, and to be part of their journey, and to highlight their good work. And just to say to you that they're generally very good to share best practice. So if you see somebody in there that you'd like to talk to, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to connect you to them, and they will go very well from there. So next slide there, next sheet, if we could, please. Another list that's pretty important or very important to many of our clients, which is the best workplaces in tech list. And the deadline is coming up quite shortly for the 9th of April to be considered. So you need to be certified in order to be considered for the best workplaces in tech list. And if you're in that sector, or potential to be in that sector and competing for talent, this is a good way of highlighting what you're achieving, and a good way of attracting the best talent, which is really important, obviously, in the tech sector. Now, a couple of other things coming up as well, actually, there, if we move on. So we were just chatting with Patrick and Colin there just before he came on this morning. And one of the things we were talking about is sustainability and resilience, and how a fast-moving world really puts a lot of pressure on leaders, and a lot of pressure on management, and a lot of pressure on all our employees, and how investing in employee well-being could really drive employee retention and resilience in the light of all of that change. So with that in mind, we have a couple of excellent speakers coming up for our webinar on the 23rd of April at 10 o'clock, with Marina facilitating that discussion. So we've got Linda, who's head of HR for the National Cancer Registry, and Natalie, of course, from Allianz, sharing their practices and laying them out there to demonstrate what they have learned from those processes, to make those takeaways available to you, and to share with our clients and our potential clients what best practice looks like in this area, which is constantly developing. And that'll also hopefully be a very, very worthwhile webinar for you to attend. And if you want to register, you can just there. Actually, we'll also be sending out links to that after this webinar. So thanks, Akshita. Now, without further ado, that brings me into, first of all, mentioning to Colin. Colin, we've been working for quite a number of years together on the Most Trusted Leader Award with yourself and with TU Dublin. Delighted to have you back. Colin heads up the Graduate Business School at TU Dublin, and they specialise in developing leadership programs. And what I've also always found while working with Colin over many, many years is he's a brilliant example, as is the school, of bringing the best of both theory and practice together and making it available. So in order to make evidence-based decision making around leadership and around development and around high-performing organizations, Colin's an excellent example of bringing the best of all of that together. As well as doing the MBA program, they also deliver specialized programs to the likes of Workday and version 1 and so on and so forth. So really, really deeply embedded in industry, but also bringing that whole theory to bear on people's learning and real sort of practice there. So we're delighted to work with TU Dublin, delighted to partner with them again, and delighted to work with Collie in terms of this particular discussion. Patrick is our most trusted leader of 2026, and we've had the great pleasure of working with Patrick for a number of years. Patrick worked originally back in for Saint-Gobain for a number of years, and he was headhunted from Paris, left Paris to come back to Ireland. Hard for me to figure that out, really. But there we go. It's such a beautiful city. But in any case, he took over initially as the COO and then into as CEO designate into Grafton and to head up the Chadwicks operation there. He's had a lot of experience in that whole area, having worked for Wavin and so on. He's got a bachelor's and a master's degree in business, and he's got a diploma in coaching. So Patrick is the CEO of Chadwicks Group in Ireland, and as I say, he's the most trusted leader, and looking forward to getting into that discussion. Chadwicks have a big presence in Ireland with a couple of thousand colleagues across the organisation, everything from the paneling group to heat and steel to many different brands that go into to supplying across the construction industry and everything to do with that. So such an important area to us in terms of housing and shelter and how it is all of that is supported across the country. So Patrick, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
So over to you guys. Let's get into this discussion. That Akshita is also launching a webinar, a poll for the webinar right now, which is just to check in some questions. So if you get a chance, please do vote on that. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Patrick, for joining us this morning. So I've been really looking forward to this discussion today, as I've been under pressure last weekend to get out the back and sort out all sorts of things with power washers and things after the such bad weather. So hopefully the tide is turning on all of that, and I'll be taking a trip to one of your stores. Patrick, congratulations on the award for the most trusted leader. It's an award that we've proudly been sponsoring for many years now, and it's a who's who of exceptional leaders. So a great recognition, no cash prize or gold statue, but a wonderful recognition of phenomenal leadership as voted for by and recognised by your colleagues within your organisation. So we might just kick off. We've a number of questions we're going to tease out around trust and high performance leadership, but maybe you might just give us a little bit of the backstory. So you've been with Chadwicks for around about 10 years or so, and about 8 years or so as CEO. So maybe you might just give the audience an overview of the kind of the evolution of the business over that time.
Sure, Colin. Good morning. Thanks for that. So morning, everybody. I, as Jim said, have been in the business 10 years, 8 years as CEO. So I joined in 2015. So if you can remember back that far, we were just coming out of the financial crisis. I think in 2013, we had the lowest number of houses we'd ever built in the country at about 3,500 units. And, you know, the construction industry in Ireland had been fairly much decimated, probably worse than pretty much anywhere else in the Western world. So, you know, the organization I joined was a good company. It had been around for a long time, and we'd had in the mid-noughties, you'd seen the Heaton PLC group and Chadwicks Group or Grafton Group come together as two big builders merchants, but they never had time to integrate before the crash happened. So when we came out of that, and when I joined in 2015, we had a collection of really good businesses, but that had never been integrated. So they'd been merged, but not put together in any meaningful way, which, as you can imagine, created a lot of issues because we had 4 ERP systems. We had no we no cohesiveness in terms of customer experience. The culture was depended on what location you were in, to be honest with you, because they not only had acquired each other, but they also had individually bought independent builders merchants. So those brands all sat there. So we had like 16 different builders merchant brands all operating. So I suppose my period as CEO gave me time to look under the bonnet and say, well, where do we start here? How do we get this back in an industry that had been decimated? And how do we really pull this together and create some cohesion? And we ran at that time a project called the Power of One, which is moving to one ERP system, one culture, one principal brand, and one customer experience across the group. So, so at that time it was turning over about 380 million. We had about 1,000 colleagues in the business. So, but it was a bit like most places in the mid of that decade, a bit fragmented, a bit fractured from what had happened, and there hadn't been a lot of investment. So I suppose I looked at it as an opportunity to, well, how do we consolidate this and really grow it? And that's the context of where I joined.
A fascinating journey, and I, like many on the call, have probably been through complicated mergers and kind of understand the challenges of creating a singular culture and so on. And we might kind of tip into that a little bit later. But one thing I'm interested in that journey is, how did you build trust, and how important was trust as you sought to integrate those cultures?
Yeah, so I suppose moving to that one culture probably started to deliver on that, and that having alignment of culture, as everyone will know, takes quite a while. So we had to put other pillars in place as well. So moving to one principal brand, so people felt that they were part of one thing, not part of multiple things. Um, on the same system, same processes, really getting that how we do things around here harmonized so that we could actually all talk the same language and do the same things in the same way, and so that our customers could begin to understand that we were one company. So we embarked on a huge investment program to align all our stores, rebrand them into one brand, so they had the same look and feel. So then people were wearing the same badge on their shirts every day. We improved all the welfare facilities because they needed to get something out of this as well. We retrained everyone with the same sort of language, and really that started to come together, bringing them together in groups, and then starting to talk about the strategy and where they saw strategies. So starting at the top, the next level down to branch manager level, bringing them all into rooms and saying, where do you see us in 10 years' time, and challenging them to think beyond I'm going to say the dark hole they had come out of, which was that horrible GFC. So what this could look like in 10 years' time, and that really worked because there started to become ownership then in terms of where we're going in terms of strategy. And the other part of that was really aligning the values, really embedding values into the company, so that we spoke the same language, we talked about the same values that we all had, and that was important.
And just on that, I suppose a kind of a broad one around, when you think about trust, to you as a leader, what does trust mean within your organization?
Yeah, and trust, I suppose trust can't happen in isolation. You need multiple parties. You need at least two people for trust to exist in a relationship. And I think starting at the top, and really, building confidence in people that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. The business is going to do what it says it's going to do. They're going to be protected. The business is going to be protected, and really having that shared ambition and trust, for me, is that glue that kind of connects colleagues with a shared ambition, and it also becomes the anchor that keeps people grounded and teams focused on the same objective. So all of that is very binding, and it's very much part of where we're at today.
And one thing that strikes me is, so you folks have, I believe, over 2,000 colleagues across, I think, 90 or so locations around the country.
Yeah.
it's a difficult thing in terms of building trust when you have a small number of physical workplaces, and particularly you guys have grown through acquisition and mergers and so on, family businesses and so on. How have you successfully built trust across such a dispersed business?
Well, the first thing I needed to do was to put in a really strong leadership team and a diverse leadership team, but had shared values and shared ambitions in terms of where we wanted to bring the business. And in order to kind of kick it on and get us out of that dark hole, as I call it, I brought in some really good people who came from other industries who were really good at doing what they're doing, whether that was operations or marketing or category management and so forth, so that we could see, we could map out a future with those new skills on board. And we also took, obviously, a lot of skills in the organization, a lot of really good people, and we put them focused on helping those people who knew less about the industry. So the combined skill set of those who knew about builders merchanting, but also knew what a new us could look like, really began to work. And once you get some success at that, once you've had a year of achieving those profit numbers, achieving the profit share numbers, achieving what you said you were going to do, people kind of go, okay, maybe the guys do know what they're doing. And then you get a second year doing that, and a third year. And people buy into you very quickly if you're doing what you say you're going to do, and you're delivering on that messaging, and particularly for them. And I think you need to show that this isn't about me. It's not just about the leadership team. It's about doing the right thing for the business and the colleagues and the other stakeholders like our customers that are there. And I think pulling all that together is really what helps to do it.
And that's an interesting one, because sometimes you have to do the right things, but the right thing isn't always
Not the easiest.
immediately positive for
Yeah.
the culture and the reaction of people on the
Yeah.
ground. Do you find that challenging sometimes?
Yeah, I think you need to people need to buy into what you're doing, and you're always going to have a percentage. And I'm sure Jim sees this in companies all the time. There's always a level of people, who are a little bit less engaged than the core group. You get highly engaged people, and then the center core is like a bell curve, I think, and then you'll have a percentage, whether that's 5 or 10% who are passing through, or passengers as we sometimes call them, and that's fine. But you need to get the hearts and minds of the bulk of the people, and that builds momentum. Success builds success, and I think that's very much part of it.
And obviously, winning the hearts and minds and connecting with people. And I suppose a big part of that is engagement with people across the business and kind of understanding, listening and understanding, and I suppose feedback is great for that, and the like's a great place to work. In general, how do you go about kind of getting, as someone that's a CEO and has layers of management, how do you kind of take the pulse of the business? Because you seem, from speaking to you on the awards night, you seem quite engaged with the business. And so how do you go about doing that in such a busy role?
Look, and multiple ways is the answer to that. There's the formal and informal network of feedback, if you like. Certainly, a great tool has been for us, and not just because Jim's on the call, but the great place to work. It gives you that formal feedback, but the real gold is in the commentary that you get. And if you can pick up themes about what people are would like to see more of, or would like to see less of, or how they're feeling impacted, and what they're feeling, and during different periods of the last 7 or 8 years, and doing multiple surveys, you get the sense that people are under pressure financially. You get the pressure and all the things that we've had, and during COVID, for instance, the loneliness, the lack of connection, the frustration, the not knowing what was going to happen, and being able to pick up on that, it was really, really important. There's nothing I love more than going out to a branch, so I get out as often as I can, chat to the lads behind the counter, and that's and the more they trust that you're listening, the more they'll talk to you. Do you know what I mean? And they don't mind they don't hold back
They don't
anymore.
hold back. They'll give
Yeah.
it to you.
Which is great, and
Yeah,
I'll take it, all day
yeah,
long. I'd rather I heard about it, because otherwise we're wasting everyone's time if I'm not
yeah.
getting that feedback. But also my team get it, and then you get those informal comments. Have you thought about what's happening? And the fact that if you're seen to have an open door where people can actually give you feedback, and they will if they trust you're going to do something with it, and not just
And I think that's the important point, because I've heard many organizations over the years where they'll ask and they'll get the feedback, but then they won't action, or they won't show how they're actioning. And I think that's more damaging in many ways.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right. And before we do a survey, we'll talk about, when we do a survey, we'll come back and say, here's the plan, and that's by location. Here's
Yeah.
our plan for this location, and then when we before we resurvey again, we go, here's what we've done, and whether that's at a macro level across the business or at a micro level in a locality. But I think it's really important to show people that you've listened. Here's what you said in the survey. Here's what we've prioritized. And now here's what we're going to do about it, and then do it, so that you can go into the next survey with everyone understanding that, okay, well, they did listen. We didn't get everything done, because you can't do everything all in once, but it's a journey, and if you pick the big things that you're hearing from those comments, I think that really helps.
Yeah, and tackle each as you go, I suppose, and
Yeah.
prioritize.
If you're just going to put the survey results on a shelf, you've lost
Yeah,
the engagement immediately.
yeah. It's worse than not doing the survey at
Oh,
all,
absolutely,
I
100%.
think.
Yeah, yeah.
And Patrick, how is that? Because obviously you're working through multiple layers of leaders across the organization, and kind of everyone has to be on that same page, really, don't they?
Yeah.
To build a really high performing, high trust culture, you need leaders at all levels to step up and to lead with trust and to show trust. Has there been any challenges in that regard, or how do you reinforce the necessity of that across the
Yeah,
organization?
well, I suppose, the aligning on values is really important, and making those values real, but making them simple to understand. So, every new colleague that comes into this business, I meet them at induction. I talk about our values. I talk about our strategy. Everyone gets to see it. It's the same three horizons. Here's where we're going out to 2032. Here's the steps we're going to take. Here's a bit where we've come from, just to show that there is a pedigree and a history here of achieving. And here's where we want to get to. Here's the ambition for 27. Here's the ambition for 30. Here's the ambition for 32. And here's your job in helping us achieve that. And you're empowered to do it. And we'll train you to do different things so that you can make your ambitions part of our strategy as well. And I think getting people at an early stage and sharing that with them, so they don't feel like mushrooms being kept in the dark. I didn't know that was going to happen, can never
Yeah,
be said, because everyone gets to know, and they get to know their place in it. And I think at that point, I always say to people when I stand up in front of them, and I talk about our values, I say, if these values don't align with yours, you should really go now, because
yeah,
we're going to live them. And if they jar with you in some way, then that's not, that's not good. The other thing I do is I do a blog every Friday, and through that, I weave some elements of examples of our values all the time, whether that's about, being trustworthy, or valuing our people, or being ambitious, giving a shout out to the guy in Tralee who did something that was entrepreneurial, that was above and beyond what he needed to do, or whatever that is, and I think that's important. And celebrating success, across the organization when you get it. I think making that a shared celebration, and not just, isolated or not acknowledging at all, which would be even worse.
yeah. Um, you've been through a journey with the organization, quite an interesting
Still on
journey.
a journey, I'm afraid, Colin.
Yeah. And the journey's not stopping anytime soon. We're continuously being battered by one crisis after another, it seems. But um, in terms of increasing trust levels, and you seeing that kind of cohesion of the culture coming together, and trust levels building and acting on that feedback, what kind of practical, like, performance type benefits have you seen from that journey?
I think, I think a high trust environment gives people a greater confidence, greater self-belief in that we can achieve these ambitions together. I think it kind of gives people permission to go above and beyond just their normal output. I think they feel, because they're contributing to a bigger thing, that they actually do go above and beyond, um, to serve customers better, to serve internal customers better, to be good for colleagues. And I think there's a safety and security in a high trust environment. Um, we also get lower colleague turnover. You get, like, we've acquired several companies in the last few years, that sit kind of adjacent to the normal builders merchants business with higher levels of turnover, up at 25-30%. And we've seen within 12 months that come down to single digit because we put our arms around them, we adopt them, we make them part of the family. And it's extraordinary. If someone had told me that 7 or 8 years ago, that's what could happen in a high trust environment, I would have been skeptical, but it genuinely happens, and I've the numbers to prove it. And it's fantastic that you can get to that level. And and just putting that in context, it settles everyone down, first of all, because you don't have a churn of people.
Yeah.
But it's also so expensive to hire people, new people all the time. You're better off having good people and developing them, which is thankfully what we have a lot of in this organization, really good people that have been developed.
Well, a shout out to the people across the business, because that's a huge team effort
Oh,
to
absolutely.
keep people like that and to build a
100%.
consistent culture, because
Yeah.
and particularly in terms of the importance of direct line managers or people leaders, because when that's not right, people tend to jump ship quite quickly.
Yeah,
So
and
they're
like I
obviously
started
doing,
this by saying, this isn't about one person.
yeah,
This is all about all the way down, leadership team, middle management, branch management, all the way down to charge hands and whatever, all
yeah.
the way through the organization. You need to have that, and if you get too many deviants in that, it does crack. So I think
You get a chink in the chain.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Tell me this. So some people kind of often say to me, yeah, well, trust is kind of much easier to build when times are good, right? When the
Hmm.
company is doing well and the landscape is fairly smooth and so on. But we know that in any efforts to increase performance and so on, there invariably is that bit of tension around a bit of feedback and challenge and so on that can be difficult. What do you think that relationship is between trust and high performance?
Oh, I think it's, as I said, it's around having that confidence, but that resilience. If you look just at that 8 year period that I've been seeing, we've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had Ukraine war, we now have Middle East, we've had inflation, we've had deflation, we've had everything that you can throw at businesses, and not just ours, but not just our industry. I think anyone who's been through the last 8 years and come out of it with a growth mindset must have a high level of trust in their organizations to give them that resilience to keep coming back and having that belief that they can do it, and to do it in a way that outperforms other businesses. There's no question, if you have a high trust environment within your business, it's going to be a much higher performing business than one that doesn't have it. So it's really worth investing in that.
Yeah. And I think with all those challenges and the challenges we're currently facing, like all of the various mega trends, the geopolitical environment, AI, all of these things. I've heard you talk before just around kind of entrepreneurial mindset in some ways, and how trust allows, and even mentioned there permission to go above and beyond, and to kind of to have that little bit of autonomy to figure things out. I guess that type of culture is going to be incredibly important as we deal with a kind of an avalanche of unknowns, if you like, as the landscape stays kind of complex and so on. What else are Chadwicks doing to kind of prepare people for the future?
So like we're the market leaders, and we're fortunate to have that position that we've grown to, and market leaders need to lead. So across whatever pillar that is within the business, we need to do it. Like we're well underway in adopting AI across the business. And if you'd said to me 5 years ago AI was going to be something that we'd be actively using in the business, I would have said, really, in the builders merchants? The change we've seen in the construction industry in the past decade has probably brought it further on than it had been in the previous 20 or 30 years, to be honest with you. So I use this expression all the time, and it's kind of like a mantra. Our job in our business is to stay relevant to what our customers need and make it easy for them to do business with us. And that permeates throughout the business. And in everything we do, that's in our DNA. How do we stay relevant? If we're doing something that's not relevant to our customers, we've lost the plot here, and then make it really easy. Simplify processes, simplify, get rid of the paperwork, get rid of all those things that stand in the way of them doing business with you. Allow them to do business in the easiest way possible and have that offering that they need. And that's why we set up a specialty products division, because in our general builders merchants, we didn't have enough products to go onto every site. So we've bought 7 or 8 companies in the last while that all sit outside that, but just offer a technical expertise that our customers wanted and needed, and that's been fantastic. And they're great platforms for moving into. We just recently bought a timber frame company because modern methods of construction is very, very much part of where the industry is going, and that's showing ambition. That's showing staying relevant. That's showing us that we're making it easy for customers to do business with us. And I think, continually doing that, and we'll do something else in the next number of months that demonstrate that as well. And honestly, the reaction from colleagues when you do big stuff like that, and they just applaud it because they go, that's showing strength, it's showing ambition, it's showing being relevant, and segueing into whatever platform we need to do to be part of that business that we've grown over the last number of years.
I was going to ask you a question as to whether avocado bathroom suites are on the way back or not, because I did see
Hang
them.
on to it, Colin. Hang on to it. Don't get rid of it. Don't be persuaded to get rid of it. It's fine. Or dusty pink is a good color as well. Yeah, color suites are coming back. Believe me.
I'm having flashbacks. People talk a lot about kind of building trust, but I often get questions about rebuilding trust, right? So when trust has been damaged or trust isn't quite where it needs to be because of a little bit of a fallout and so on. Have you come across that much? Have you any tips on rebuilding trust?
It's it's a fragile thing sometimes, and particularly one-on-one relationships you can, and it's to be avoided at all costs, isn't it? I mean, even in whatever relationships we all have, if you breach trust with a partner, with a friend, with a family member, you got to get it back quickly, and the way to do that really is to if you've made a mistake, be accountable for it, and commit to do better, and show serious intentionality in making amends, for doing it. Everyone makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're human. That's what's brilliant about all of us. Put your hand up early and go, that's on me. I need to sort that out, and then follow through and do it. Walking away from it, putting your head in the sand is not the way to deal with that, or saying, just because I'm the boss, I can do that. You cannot do that. You must do what you say you're going to do. And I have a golden rule: never tell a lie, because it just leads to another one and another one and another one. And I say that all the time. I'm to all my team and members, I'm never going to tell you a lie. I'm always going to do what I say I'm going to do, even if you may not like it. But that's the consistency, and that's the follow through that you need to do.
And it's kind of empowering as well, I think, or a little bit liberating, because I have seen when people are trying to skirt around things like that, where there is an untruth or there's the amount of effort then required as a follow-on.
Yes,
sometimes it's a lot easier to say,
actually, and trying to keep
on
count of
me.
the lie after the lie after the lie.
Yeah. It gets very complex.
Yeah.
I love those 2 points: stay relevant and make it easy to work with us. I think that's really powerful in terms of just connecting people around two really important things. They cover such a multitude of things as well. I think one of the things that I come across in organizations a lot is that inability sometimes of people to simplify. I think that's actually in some ways a bit of a lost art, right? Things become unnecessarily complex all the time, and then you lose people. And it makes me think about what you were saying about that kind of cascading strategy piece, right? And I know you have a chat with people when they join the organization around the strategy, as you mentioned. How else do you go about getting that feedback? Because I think a lot of people, I'm working on a strategic plan, and a lot of people on the call probably have been or will be. Any tips just around that kind of practical buy-in around the strategy piece?
Well, we literally brought everyone when we were doing the big strategy sessions. We brought everyone into workshops so that, like I said, have a vision out for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, and so forth, and to make them part of it, and then recommunicate it, put it in a simple documentation, demonstrate where you're going on that line of the strategy, every single year. Here's where we're at, guys. Communicate it back. We've managers forums all the time. We've got colleague committee forums. We've all these forums that allow us to communicate in a very structured way where we're at in terms of the strategy. And if we're doing something that, like, and particularly a colleague committee, because they go, why are we doing that? Where does that fit? And you just explain it, and you go, that ties in because we said we were going to do this, and that's where that sits. And I think that explanation of that, but using language that, I always say using language with the that will be acceptable to the least engaged person in the business, that they
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
Using highfalutin terms and abbreviations for everything that no one understands gets you nowhere. Simple language, well communicated, really, really does that. And as you do that, it cascades through the organization, and that's how we do it. Yeah.
People can connect with it and own it. Yeah, great. Um, I'm conscious we purposely, folks, set out today not to go through too many questions here because we want to leave adequate time for Q&A, and we don't want that to be rushed. So we might just jump into the chat now and just see what questions we have there. Let me just.
One to start off there, Colin, is the from Grania Quinn. She's asking Patrick, how do you engage middle managers in in that whole trust journey, and how do you support them?
Yeah, we did that from an early stage as well, Jim. And Grania, thanks for your question. So, and it's iterative, and it just by continually meeting with them, speaking to them about it, demonstrating where their role is in delivering on that, and checking back in with them to see, is that still relevant to what needs to happen. You can write a strategy, as I said, out to 2032 as ours. But you need to be nimble as well. Stuff happens that gets in the way of delivering that, and sometimes you deliver it a little bit early. But communicating to that group is really, 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 really important, because they deliver so much in every organization. They're closer to a broader number of people on a daily basis. So it's really important that you've got them on board, and that's how we do it, Jen.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I know you do focus on managers' own results and their feedback and what it
Yeah.
is like for them to be employees as well, and
No,
supporting
100%. Yeah.
them
Yeah.
to be
That feedback from the service as well is really important. But they're a really engaged group of people, our middle managers. They're and they have no problem stopping me in a corridor or sticking their head around the door and going, have you thought about this? Or can you explain to me why we're doing that? Or, this is what's happening. Like, and that's that openness, that trust, that they know you're not just hearing them, but you're listening to them. Do you know what I mean? That it's important, and they're such an important group in the business.
There's a question in there just in the Q&A, Patrick, from Adrian Mead Brannigan, who I think is someone I used to work with long ago. But she's just asking about the diversity of skills in that leadership team, and just interested about how you knew what those skills were and how you went and found those people.
Yeah, so I started with the gaps, I suppose. Where what do we like? Because we had the organization itself were really skilled at being builders merchants, quite frankly. I mean, they've been doing it for decades. In fact, some parts of it 200 years. So I didn't necessarily need more of that, because they were brilliant already. They were fantastic. But when like I keep talking about this dark hole that we were in coming out of that. So to bring some spark of, like, so a couple of them came from the grocery industry. Now, grocery would be probably 10 years ahead of our industry in terms of how they present themselves, how they merchandise products, how they do category management, all of that. So we had quite a two or three people who came from that space, because they could challenge us on, well, why are we not doing that now at this point? Why are we not doing more digital stuff? Like, there was very little digital, to be honest with you, 10 years ago, almost none. And when I sat with customers, I did a lot of my first 2 years as CEO, did a lot of focus groups with the white van man and with other customers, mapping out their journey. So where's your real problem here? And my problem is not getting product. It's dealing with the paperwork, all those invoices that went in the wash machine because they were in my jeans pocket and whatever else. And really streamlining that. I was like, well, I need some digital capability in here. So that was, one of the first things I got. Then operationally, how do we then take the paper out of the business? How do we merchandise stores better? How do we make these look better? Get somebody who's done that in a different environment to go, this is, because, even though people go, they're builders, they still expect an environment that's easy to shop, that has clear pricing, that, all of that sort of stuff. So, and then online and that whole digital journey, we moved to e-invoicing. So, but not one person had all of that here. So bringing in guys who were and girls who were so much better at doing that stuff than I ever could be. Like I had a background in marketing. Like I had done very little in digital marketing. Now, like our team won digital marketing team of the year last year and the Grand Prix because they're just so brilliant at what they do. That was skills that were not in the business. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
understanding the gaps and then filling them with really good people. And you know, we struggle to get some people, to be honest with you, and
Yeah.
you're better off in an empty house than a bad tenant in that case, you know, and until you get the right
Absolutely.
person to do it, then you gotta be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Does a question there around, you mentioned earlier on, um just something around kind of caring for people and you know and being mindful of what people need and so on. And there's a question in there just around, you know, with increasing uncertainty, disruptions, and, you know, fears that individuals have. It might be cost of living, it might be kind of just changes in the environment. How do you kind of support, you know, a duty of care to employee well-being? Is there anything that you folks do to specifically to support employees?
Well, look, this in a broader context, that's a really good question. I think people look to leaders across the spectrums for good leadership. And I think, you know, we're living in really uncertain times now, particularly around uncertainty in political leadership, both globally and locally. And I think we as business leaders, we need to step up a little bit more actually and take that opportunity to you know steady the ship a little bit and give people certainty around what we're doing, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
Yeah.
And I think we need to take, you know, be more courageous than rather than comfortable, you know, in terms of what we're doing, and really communicate openly to people. And that communication piece is a really part of understanding the well-being of people as well, listening to what they're doing. So then how do you deal with it? Depends on what it is. You know, giving them certainty, really, really important that people are certain about their position, their place, the company, and what they're doing. And that's good communication. You know, what we have done in the past during, and a lot of companies did the same thing, you know, during COVID, we made sure that everyone got paid. We didn't lay anyone off. We kept communicating every single day. We had Teams calls, you know, including people in it so that they didn't feel it. We even had online cookery demonstrations and all sorts of things in the evening, you know, when people were doing Zoom calls with people they hadn't talked to in ages, just to
Yeah. We were all playing guitars and singing
exactly
songs and
making sourdough and all those things. And
trying anything.
let's not go back there. But so, and even during, you know, the cost of living crisis, you know, we gave them an extra few bob in terms of vouchers and that sort of thing. We've all sorts of wellness and engagement programs across the business, and that pivots a little bit depending on what the mood is in the organization, but also in the country, so that we're seen to be putting our arms around them and doing what's right for them.
Yeah. And one of the things, and it's related to a question that's come in here around, you mentioned earlier that it's a lot better to hold on to people. Obviously, recruitment and finding new people is time consuming and very expensive, and can have a negative impact on the business. Career progression is one of the things. So obviously salary comes up a lot, but career progression is one of the things that people look for. Do you folks have like individual career development pathways, or how do you manage that within the business?
Yeah, so we do. Every colleague has at least, you know, once a year has the opportunity to speak with their line manager about them, just about them and their career development. And what we do is we map out if they, you know, so if you're here and you want to move to another level, how do we get you there? You know, and we in-house have a lot. We've got leadership development programs, we've got sales academies, credit academies. We've a number of different routes for them to go depending on which type of career they would like to develop into. And if we don't have it in-house, then there's lots of institutions who provide that sort of training. And I think having those meaningful conversations with your line manager is really important, because if you're not given that opportunity, well, where's your voice then in your career? Do you know what I mean? Because now everyone's going to bang the door down their line manager, go, I want to do this course, or I want to do that, and I want to be that person. So having that formalized, you know, an enablement conversation, if you like, for people, particularly for younger people. Like And I think most industries are seeing this, the biggest churn of people who are in the company less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So providing them with that, and they leave for, €1 an hour or whatever they leave for, or go travel
Yeah.
to Australia, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I applaud that as well. But
Yeah.
if you can actually give them a sense of, I actually have a home here, I can move to this. Like we've been so lucky with the quality of people that we've had. I mean, it wouldn't be unusual for me to be meeting somebody who's been here 50 years and presenting them with a watch. And 40 years is kind of, it's good, but it's not 50, is it?
Yeah.
I'm only 10. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm still a newbie, and
Yeah.
will be for a long time. We've a lot of people more than 30 years in this business, and even more over 20. So, um, and that provides a real stability in the organization. We all had the great resignation after COVID, and people were going, and it's really unsettling for people. Oh my God, they're going on, and it becomes a little bit catastrophizing, and you need to avoid that. So settling the troops from that point of view is important.
Yeah, that's phenomenal in terms of that kind of tenure from many of your colleagues, and we do see it. We do see it when we do some stuff on employer branding with Jim and the team as well. And it is interesting because graduates want that engagement, and they want to feel a sense of community, and they want that sense of the workplace, and they want to come into work at least some of the time to make that connection.
Yeah.
Do you have many people working remotely, Patrick, or because obviously you've physical locations, but
Yeah, no, obviously we're the vast majority of our colleagues are customer facing or operationally. And you can't drive a forklift from home. It's
yeah,
not that easy. So we have a number of colleagues in head office who work remotely a couple of days a week,
mm,
um, and have done for the last while. Um, I actually see people drifting more back into the office now than and
yeah,
like it used to be kind of Mondays and Fridays there was no one here, but it was
yeah,
yesterday car park was full, like and so I think people get there's a big collegial benefit of being in work, and you got to balance it. I know there are people who have long commutes, or they've got different circumstances that really work from home helps them to live their best life. Um,
yeah.
but I'm a big believer in people being in work and communicating with colleagues and working with colleagues, because it's that culture is enabled much better when people are physically in and communicating.
Yeah, I find like if we're doing creative stuff, like trying to design courses and things like that, I think it put me in front of a whiteboard in a room with people. I think sometimes certain tasks are just easier and
Yeah.
quicker. But did you do anything? Has that kind of happened more naturally that people have realized that, or have you folks
I
encouraged
think
that
I
in
think
any
people who
way?
are
Or
in very transactional roles, I think it
Mm,
works very well for.
yeah,
I think if you're in a collaborative role, it works less well.
yeah,
Um, like I've done as much as 7 hours on a Teams call, one single Teams call, like which is just mind wrecking, isn't it?
yeah,
So I think if you were in a room doing that long strategy session, I think you'd get a lot more out of it. And
yeah.
so I think it's there's a good balance. I'm not anti working from home. I think it's getting the balance right. I think new people joining a business, or particularly younger people who are trying to learn the culture of the business, I think they should insert themselves as much as possible into the office. We're a company who goes, you can work 5 days a week here if you want. Like
Mm.
that's in office. We don't have a limit on it. You don't have to book desks or anything like that. It's pretty much, yeah, we'll have a spot for you if you want to come in. So and we encourage it. So yeah.
And I guess that's still changing, right? The trends around return to the office, and there's different things happening. Every week you're hearing different kind of news stories around it. I'm interested that graduate question that you mentioned there, just around. I think sometimes what's hard is the kind of mentoring that kind of happens naturally, and when people are kind of face to face, the learning by osmosis nearly, and just kind of that role modeling piece. There used to be more of an apprenticeship type model. People would come in, they get exposed to different parts of the business, while they're in there and meeting different people. Is there anything you do around that for kind of fresh graduates and so on to expose them to the business, or does that kind of happen naturally?
Yeah, it happens in teams. I mean, we've a really good, strong team culture. So, if you come into our marketing team, or come into our finance team, or come into our category team, there's a real honestly, real collegial people want to help you, and I dip back into people, a level down or two levels down from my role to see how are they getting on, within the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and the one thing that comes back all the time, we can't believe how helpful everyone is. You
Yeah.
just can't believe how helpful they are, no matter whether it's across departments or within their own department. It's an outstanding comment that comes from people coming into this business, And the other thing is, and particularly in my own hires, they go, it's exactly as you said it would be. Do you know what I mean? The culture
Yeah.
is as it's presented, and I think that's that transparency, that integrity of this is what it is. This is words not. Are we perfect? No, we're not.
Yeah.
But we don't
What
pretend.
culture is,
We only pretend what we are, not
yeah.
and nothing else.
That authenticity piece is amazing because you hear about that all of the time around people. I'm doing a piece of research with a company at the moment to talk about that. And when you probe, I say, well, does the company do anything? Well, it just kind of happens. And then you probe it and they say, well, they reinforce the values all the time. It's done on hiring, it's done on true managers, it's done at local level, it's done in true town halls. So then when you unpick, you realize that what some people didn't even realize till they took a step back and said, actually, we are positively reinforcing that all the
Yeah.
time because it doesn't just happen, right? So it becomes, and then when people join the organization that maybe aren't kind of fit with a good fit with that culture in terms of the collaboration and so on, they don't stay long because they feel that there's not a good fit there. To what you said, we leave the values, we live the
Yeah.
values, and if that's not something you can align with, well, maybe it's not the
And I
place.
think if the values are part of your DNA, and this is how we do things around here, you actually don't think it's not a job then, is it? It
Yeah,
just it happens, as you say, by osmosis and just by people collaborating, which is why I think, particularly new recruits being in the office and being around the branch and
yeah.
being wherever they need to be to soak that up. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think we're doubling down. I know we're doubling down on the transversal and the kind of people skills and so on in an era of AI because AI is creating a lot of content and it's easy to find things, but those people skills and the relationship skills and so on, I think are incredibly important. Particularly as people set out on their careers,
Yeah, I think AI can tell you how to do it, but it can't tell you how it felt when you were doing it.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Sorry.
We're coming towards the end. We just have a question here around for new hires. Do you have initiatives for people coming into the company? Are there clubs or anything that kind of again formally exposes them to the culture or events or anything like that?
We have a lot of forums. That's what we do. We don't tend to do a lot of, because we've 90 different locations at local level. Obviously, they have their own. They celebrate their own successes and their own things. But bringing the 2,200 people all together into even three or
Yeah, of
four places is a massive job every time.
course.
So we tend to do national forums, and it's basically trickle down. It's managers forums and lots of different forums for
Mm.
communication. But yeah, we don't have a lot of there's golf societies and this sort of thing that happen, and people jump into them and so forth. But yeah, I think it's just the way we communicate around the business all the time is what brings that glue together.
And you have that strong one culture that you mentioned, but is there pride at a local level around, with the managers around, their culture as well? That way, like as in localizing, and I guess there
Yeah, yeah,
is.
no, I don't mind a bit of healthy
Yeah,
competition between, performance from branch to branch and that sort of thing, because that's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, it gets that spirit of competitiveness amongst yourselves, that which is great fun as well, and because we allow people to see how they're doing versus other branches and other locations
yeah.
and so forth, and that's a bit of really friendly, robust rivalry now is good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Patrick, thanks a million. I think we're coming close to time, Jim, so I might
Yeah,
pass back to you.
thanks very much, Colin, and thanks very much, Patrick. I'm reminded how mastery is made sound easy at times, right? In terms of how you both have engaged with this subject. And thank you so much, Patrick, for being
No,
so
you're welcome.
authentic and straightforward about every portion of this. Leadership is so important when change is moving so fast, when you've got AI and where do we work from and different business challenges and different socioeconomic challenges and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for sharing the wisdom of many years and across many situations and across many challenges. And I know people will find this valuable and inspiring, and we're very thankful to be working with you. So thanks also to everybody who joined and for the Great Place to Work team and Akshita in particular for who put all of this together. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Akshita's just popped into the chat there about the upcoming webinars and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for taking part, and thanks to you all.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Colin. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks, and thanks to Jim and Colin and Marina and Akshita and the team. A great event as always, and lots for us to all ponder about. Patrick, I see people in the chat looking out for jobs in Chadwick, so I think that's always a good sign. A job well done.
Good stuff.
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks.
Bye.
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 Thank
Bye.
you.